536 may have been the worst year to be alive. Not because an army breached the wall, not because a king was killed, not because a city burned in a single night, but because something more subtle happened. The planet received less light. The sun rose, as it always had. It traced its arc across the sky. It disappeared at dusk. And yet the warmth didn't follow. Farmers noticed it before scholars did. The frost clung to the soil longer than it should. Seeds lay dormant beyond their season. Young plants emerged, but lacked vigor. Summer felt incomplete. The air shimmered with light, but fields did not ripen as they once had. No thunderous omen announced it. No curtain of darkness swallowed the sky. Instead, there was a persistent pall, a faint wail suspended between earth and the sun, not dramatic but relentless. Across the Mediterranean world, vineyards yielded less wine, olive trees produced smaller harvests, wheat fields ripened unevenly. In Ireland, chronicles would later describe a lack of bread. In Syria, writers recorded bitter cold and scarcity. In Constantinople, Procopius described a sun that shone like the moon during an eclipse, dim, weakened, strangely without force. Separate witnesses, unconnected voices, the same anomaly. They did not speak of monsters or divine wrath. They described weather, light, cold, and hunger. Something in the natural order had shifted. Centuries later, scientists would drill into Greenland's ice sheet. Layer by frozen layer, the atmosphere of the past revealed itself. Around 536, sulfur concentration spiked dramatically. A volcanic eruption, perhaps in Iceland, perhaps elsewhere, injected vast quantities of aerosols into the stratosphere. These particles reflected sunlight back into space. The change in temperature was small on paper, perhaps 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, but agricultural societies operate on precision. Planting windows are narrow. Harvest timing is delicate. Storage margins are thin. A slight cooling shortens growing seasons. A shortened season reduces yield. A reduced yield diminishes reserves. Reserves determine survival. The Eastern Roman Empire appeared formidable. Its bureaucracy was intricate. Its military campaigns ambitious. Its tax apparatus efficient. Yet, like all complex systems, it depended on predictability. Grain shipments from Egypt, tax flows from provinces, trade routes linking port to port. When harvests faltered, grain shipments shrank. When shipments shrank, urban supplies tightened. Bread portions grew smaller. Market prices climbed. Anxiety spread quickly. Governors reassured citizens, and officials blamed local conditions. A single poor harvest is survivable. 2 are destabilizing. 3 begin to erode confidence. Confidence sustains empires, as surely as armies do. Imagine a farmer in Anatolia. One year, the harvest disappoints. He sells livestock to compensate. The next year, colder winds return. He reduces seed stocks to feed his family. The third year, reserves are gone. Multiply this by thousands, across provinces, across climates. The pressure accumulates. Meanwhile, Emperor Justinian pursues reconquest. Campaigns against the Ostrogoths drain resources. Conflicts with Persia strain logistics. Reconstruction of Roman glory requires funding, and funding requires stability. As yields decline, tax burdens feel heavier. As burdens increase, resentment deepens. Infrastructure maintenance slows. Recruitment becomes difficult. Administrative efficiency declines. Resilience narrows. And then, in 541, another force enters the equation. The plague of Justinian. Carried along trade routes, it arrives in Constantinople. Dense populations accelerate transmission. Malnourishment weakens resistance. Chronicles describe bodies stacked in corridors. Mass graves carved hastily beyond city walls. Labor shortages paralyzing daily life. Tax revenue plummets. Military capacity shrinks. Agriculture declines further. The empire survives, but survival is not strength. Layered disruptions altered its trajectory. Small environmental changes recalibrated risk. Lower resilience magnified impact. Systems already under strain found fewer buffers. Civilizations are not invincible. They are networks of dependency. Food depends on climate. Revenue depends on food. Military security depends on revenue. Public confidence depends on visible stability. By the late 6th century, demographic contraction reshapes regions. Urban density declines. Economic dynamism slows. Trade persists, but with diminished scale. The Roman world survives. Yet it is no longer the same organism it once was. When historians look back, they don't see a single apocalyptic event. They see tree rings narrowing across Europe. They see sulfur in Greenland ice. They see written testimony describing a dimmed sun. They see duration. The atmospheric veil did not vanish overnight. It lingered for years. Recovery was gradual, incremental, uneven. Children born after the dim years grew up unaware of the anomaly. For them, the sun seemed ordinary again. But the world they inherited had shifted. Population density reduced. Economic momentum slowed. Political ambitions recalibrated. 536 may not have been catastrophic for every individual. Some regions endured better than others. Yet, when natural systems falter, human systems change. The lesson is not that climate destroys civilizations outright. It is that small thing that alters stability. A slightly cooler summer, a marginally shorter harvest, a modest decline in surplus. Stacked over years, these shifts transform outcomes. Great powers are not only undone by invasion, they are tested by entropy, by accumulation, by a reduced margin for error. The year 536 reminds us that predictability is precious, that complexity depends on narrow thresholds of balance. When those thresholds move, even a bit, history bends. Deep within ice cores, in wooden growth rings, in manuscripts inked by candlelight, the evidence remains. A planet dimmed, a system strained, a civilization enduring but altered. The first year to be alive was not defined by spectacle, it was defined by persistence, by the quiet erosion of certainty, by the realization that even the sun, the most constant presence in human experience, could appear unreliable. And when something as fundamental as light falters, everything built upon it must adapt. Sometimes survival is victory, sometimes survival is transformation. 536 was a turning point, written in frost, in hunger, in silence, a reminder that fragility is often invisible until it's cumulative, and that history does not always shout. Sometimes it dims.